Hey guys, it's Wade here. I wanted to go over my aft lower baffles. So the top, front, and the two sides of the baffles for my Long-EZ are from the Van's 320 size motor baffle kits. I was clued in on that by Bully Alivant, if that's how you say his name, Bully. And it's been a very good experience. They're very well made and they're cut very well. However, clearly they're made for a tractor RV aircraft. So when it comes to the back, which I call the shelf and the skirt, thankfully Mike Beasley created the Beasley baffles, and that's what I'm using for that. So this is the lower left side Beasley baffle. I've made some minor modifications to it. Then we have the right side as well. Again, this is the Beasley baffle. So you got the right side. And I filled these areas in. What Mike did, because he had an oil cooler down here, is that he made an extra plate that goes across here, that goes around both the starter and then the alternator. And since I don't have any need for reinforcement down here, since my oil cooler is in the original plans position, I just went ahead and am going with the overlap here in the center. And then I will have a bulkhead just south of this. That's kind of a V-shaped bulkhead to make this straight, and therefore the material, as far as the ceiling material, will just go up against that bulkhead. So this is the right side. Again, I've cut this out of 6061. I believe it's 30 thousandths. It's been a while since I bought this. It's 320. And I'll point out again that this is more in line to go right around the BNC alternator, which I also have. So thankfully Mike had the BNC alternator, and then he also has the BNC starter. It makes it easy for me because I have both of those as well. I have to still bend this 90 degrees and to do a bunch of these tabs 90 degrees too. So I'm waiting on a tab bender that I picked up from Amazon. So hopefully that works well. And then I'll do this large bend 90 degrees on the middle brake. For the right side, I cut this out. I left this a little bit small so that I can dial it in right where it needs to be, especially this hole here too, in association with how this is going to fit around the front starter face. Again, that's a BNC starter. Same material. I ordered two 2-foot by 2-foot sheets of this 32 thousandths. I was able to get both of these out of one sheet. Now the issue is that I did this, I marked this up and I cut this out the following day, and I forgot to drill these relief holes where the metal is going to get bent over. I still have to do this one right here, and or up here I guess. So when I was doing this one right here, as I was trying to come in from the side with the drill, because I had a brain fart or whatever, I actually scratched across here. So I started doing some research, and I was thinking, how am I going to clean this up? And I had seen on the Coba Canard Owner and Builders Association forum where somebody had posted something that is basically like the front of the Spirit of St. Louis. It's kind of a traditional, it's called engine turning, and I thought I would try it on these plates that are essentially anything when you're looking in the back end of my airplane, as far as into the cowlings, anything that's facing 90 degrees to the cowling, I'm going to go ahead and, at least I'm planning on it. I've tested it out and it looks good. So that'll help clean this up, and I'm going to do some engine turning, or some people call it jeweling. I'm not too concerned about it looking perfect, but I do want the lines to be as straight as possible just to get the most reflective effect as far as the bling. And again, that's going to help hide this, and I won't have to do too much as far as trying to get that to blend in. So I'm going to clean this up and take this plastic off, and I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm also going to do some engine turning on the two forward which are on the forward side of the engine. Again, the ones that are facing aft, those vertical walls on the front side of the engine, I'm going to engine turn those as well. At least that's the goal. So forgive any shakiness of the camera. I'm going to hand jam this a little bit until I get this set up. So this is the forward left side. I'm concerned about looking into the aft opening of the engine into the cowlings. I'm only going to go from this line to make it easy up through here, and then that is all I'm going to do on this side and then the other side as well. So here's the forward left baffle, and I've marked it up. There's a couple different ways, well, there's quite a few different ways that you can do this engine turning. I made up a little diagram, and that's kind of the pattern I want, and then to get that, I didn't want to freehand it. So I just set these squares up as guides. A lot of people will put a ruler in the X and Y, or they'll actually use their CNC table. I didn't want to go through all that trouble. I just made up a little 2x2 inch template because this is 2 inches round. And I'm just going to hit the center of each square. See, this is cleaned up and ready to go. And again, because there's kind of a hard break here, I'm starting at the bottom and I'm working up. It may not get as good of coverage that I might have wanted if I kind of messed around with it going the other direction, but I think it's going to look plenty fine. And honestly, I'm not looking for perfection. I just want this thing to look pretty good. And here we go. Yeah, this isn't set up right. My pattern isn't correct. It may be correct going this direction for the overlaps, but I switched directions. Yeah, my pattern's jacked up. So, oops, I guess I'm not even showing this on the camera. You'll have to forgive my voice. I have a little bit of a man cold. I wanted to go over the process that I'm using quickly to do this engine turning, aka jeweling. I'm simply using these fine fiber discs. Now again, this is on 6061 aluminum, so that's why I'm using the fine, and I got these from Harbor Freight. They're the green ones, if you can see in the light. There's a red one that's a little bit harsher. You could probably use it on aluminum, but I would use the red on the steel if you were going to do engine turning on steel. So you can see my setup here. I've got this chucked up in my drill press. Now, instead of doing the grid method that I started out with that you saw me, and that was just too complicated, I'm simply going line by line now. I draw a 2-inch wide line, the top guide mark and the bottom guide mark, and then I just measure each row and do one row at a time, and then I clear off the guide marks with acetone, clean it up, and then I draw another set of guide marks, and then I do my little hash marks in between where I'm creating that little box. So this guy is out. I'm not making the grid anymore. What else can you use? A lot of folks use Kratex, which is a rubber stick that has abrasives in it. That works really well. You could use some type of polishing compound or lapping compound, and you can use literally a wood dowel. That would work. Probably hardwood is better, something like an oak dowel. A lot of folks will use a 3M Scotch-Brite pad, and they'll just glue this to the end of a dowel or some type of end of a flat surface. Or some folks even use this. Now, when they do use these, from what I understand, because I obviously haven't used this, but they'll zip tie around these fibers to make sure that they don't splay out anymore when it presses down. So a lot of people have had success. Basically anything that you can do to add a little bit of abrasive and then spin it. Just wanted to do a quick overview of how I'm actually doing this. This is day 2. I finished all the front baffles, just the aft side for the engine turning,
Just wanted to give you a look at these. I think they turned out pretty darn good. Again, I wasn't looking for perfection, but I still think these look pretty spiffy. Next up is the lower left side, this guy right here. And I'm going to be working on that. And then this guy over here, which is the right side, which is the one that has the scratch. So I thought I'd show you how I'm doing this pattern. Again, it's the same pattern that I drew out earlier. And through trial and error and kind of figuring it out, I discovered that once I finish a row, then I go up 1/4 of an inch from the center of that row and I draw my first line, and then 2 inches from there, using a 2-inch disc, obviously is the width, and then I come 1/4 inch over from each center, and that I translate that up, or transpose it, whatever you want to say, up to the center here, and that's the edge mark for me coming down the line with the disc. And I'll show you me cutting that, how I do it now. Again, I've completely gotten rid of the grid, although I know some people use it. For me, it was easier to do it this way. Now when I get to the end here, obviously I don't have enough off to the end of this to make another mark. So I know in between, or on the same line, it's 1/2 inch. So I just draw my dot at 1/2 inch from the center. That's just the way the geometry works out for this pattern. And so 1/2 inch coming the other way, or on the same line, where a lot of the other stuff is 1/4 of an inch when you're figuring it out. So this coming in right here will set the pattern right when you get to the end of it. I also realized that on a lot of these, when you look at each individual circle, you'll actually see a lot of rings. So if you focus on one circle, you'll see a lot of rings. That may be just the way I'm doing it. I've noticed others that I've watched on different videos, they may be smoother. However, in totem, when you look at the whole pattern and you're not focusing on one ring, it still gives you that really cool prismatic effect. I just wanted to give you a shot of one row of how I'm doing it, and that's pretty much how I'm doing all this. Okay, sports fans, today is day 3. Hopefully I don't sound quite as froggy. As you can see, I've finished engine turning the lower right aft baffle. This part up here will be what I call the shelf, and then down here will be the skirt. It's looking pretty good. You can't really see it. I've tried a couple different ways in the camera, but if you look closely, you could still see that scratch. Even though I sanded it down and buffed it out as best as I could, there's just a very, very light bit of a scratch there, but you'd have to be looking for it. Again, there's some inherent swirling or circles, whatever you want to call it. As a whole, like I mentioned before, the whole thing creates a cool looking prismatic effect, especially when lights hit it certain ways. But this is it. So this is the final. I'll take a picture of both of these kind of set up in place. I'm not going to bend them yet. I've got some other things to do and prep before I get to that. And I've got to test the bender that I'm going to do the small tabs with. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.